Hi guys, it's time for another election update as it's getting really close now. What I'm going to do now that I failed to do at the end of last night's broadcast is talk about the constituencies, the marginal seats, see how they're going to go, and I want to end with a discussion about the returning jihadis and also a little postscript on the NHS. So Chris, I know you've been asking about Donington. Donington North and Donington South will go Labour, it appears. And I was also asked about Putney. It seems a strong possibility Putney is going to stay Conservative. All right, let's just have a look at the target seats. Now, it seems that the SNP is going to fall short of their high of 58, but they'll at least get 48 seats. And the projections from YouGov were that the Conservatives would fail to win any of their target seats in Scotland. For example, Perth and North Perthshire should stay with the SNP, as should Lanark and Hamilton East, and Edinburgh South West. And in the case of Edinburgh South West, the advantage for the SNP seems to be absolutely huge. So definitely no breakthrough for the Conservatives in Scotland. They should cling on rather than break through. It seems like the marginal Kensington is going to go to the Conservatives. They also think it will go Dudley North, and Newcastle under Lyme will go with the Conservatives. Crewe and Nantwich is a very slim lead for the Conservatives. I think that will stay under Labour. Canterbury, I'm predicting, will stay under Labour, and so are YouGov. Barrow-in-Furness will be Conservative. Kiley, it's a toss-up. I think that one could just stay Labour. It seems Ashfield, which is the second strongest Leave area next to Bolsover, will go Conservative. Stroud, Conservative. Bishop Auckland, Conservative. Peterborough, Conservative. Oxford, Western, Abingdon staying Lib Dem, and the same for Westmoreland and Lonsdale. They'll stay with Lib Dem, so the Conservatives won't convert there. Looks like Colne Valley, which is held by Labour, will go to the Conservatives, along with Ipswich, also held by Labour. In Bedford, now that one is a really tough choice. It's a toss-up. I think that one is going to be held by Labour. Stockton South, that seems that it'll go to Conservative. That might be part of the breaking of the blue wall up in the northeast. Warwick and Leamington, I had my doubts about that one, but YouGov seem to think it's going to go Conservative. I'm not quite sure. Penistone and Stockbridge going Conservative. Carshalton in Wallington will be extremely close. I think the Lib Dems will hold on to that one. Also, Argyll and Boot and Ayrshire Central will stay held by the SNP, so no break in for the Conservatives there. Eastbourne is going to go from Lib Dems to the Conservatives, according to YouGov. Lincoln will stay Labour. Portsmouth South stay Labour. Warrington South go to the Conservatives. Derby North to the Conservatives. High Peak, too close to call. I think that could stay Labour. Battersea, Labour. Wakefield to the Conservatives. Wolverhampton South West to the Conservatives. Wrexham probably to the Conservatives, according to YouGov, but I've heard stories that's really going to stay with Labour. Stoke-on-Trent, Conservatives. Dewsbury, too close to call. I'd say that's staying with Labour. Vale of Clyde, Wales, Conservative. East Lothian is going to go to the SNP. It's currently with Labour, but that seems to be going SNP direction. Kingston and Surbiton is currently Lib Dem. That'll stay that way. Norfolk North seems to be a grab for the Conservatives, taking it from the Lib Dems. Reading East will remain with Labour. Those are all the Conservative target seats. In terms of Labour target seats, it seems only Southampton Itchen could be taken away from the Conservatives. Other key target seats for Labour are actually SNP seats. Second on the list is Glasgow South West. They won't get that off the SNP, nor will they Glasgow East. From in Wales is with Clyde. I think Clyde will certainly hang on there, especially with the Lib Dems standing down as part of that sort of pact that they formed. Airdrie and Shotts in Scotland will stay definitely with the SNP. Pudsey was a target. The swing needed there was 0.31%, but I don't think they're going to get that, so the Conservatives should cling on. Hastings and Rye, that was Amber Rubb's constituency, was a marginal, but I think definitely Conservatives will hold on. Eighth on Labour's list was Chipping Barnet, but bearing in mind Chipping Barnet, along with the others on their list, for example, Hendon, and also, what else was on the list here? And Finchley and Golders Green, which was 32 on the list. Those are Jewish areas. I think it's highly unlikely they'll flip to Labour this time because of Corbyn's, the whole anti-Semitism cloud. Thurrock was ninth on Labour's list, bearing in mind Thurrock is one of the UKIP strongholds and always was a Leave area. I think it's highly unlikely Thurrock go to Labour. 10th on their list, again, it's SNP, Lanark and Hamilton East, but the SNP are so strong, Labour won't get that. Motherwell and Wishaw and Inverclyde are other areas they were hoping to get in Scotland, along with Dunfermline and Fife West and Edinburgh North and Leith and Glasgow North. I don't think any of those are possibilities for Labour to overturn. They were also hoping to overturn Calder Valley, Norwich North, Broxtowe, Stoke-on-Trent and Telford, which are all Tory areas, but they need the majorities there are between sort of 600 to 700, and I don't think with the current polls the way they are, they'll overturn any of those from the Conservatives. Broxtowe, isn't that Anna Soubry's old constituency? Yeah, I think that will definitely return a Conservative. Other targets were places like Bolton West, Aberconwy in Wales, Northampton North, Mansfield. All these are strong Leave areas, and I don't think Labour has much chance. So you can see there's nothing really on the Labour target seat that looks like a slam dunk. The only possibilities I had was maybe Milton Keynes South, Northampton South, and possibly Stoke-on-Trent. I thought that if any of them, Stoke-on-Trent South, I thought if Labour was going to overturn any Conservative majorities, it might be there. Let's have a look at Lib Dem targets. Their first target is in Scotland. It's Fife. They only need to overturn a majority of 2. But since the SNP are doing so well and the Lib Dem support has plummeted, I think the SNP will certainly hold on there. I think their second target is Richmond Park. The Tories only have a 45-seat majority. That was Jack Goldsmith. His old constituency. Zach Goldsmith, that's what I was looking for. I think the Lib Dems will actually take that one, so that's a win for them. Their third on the target list was Ceredigion in Wales, but of course because of the pact with Clyde, they definitely won't take that. There's St Ives down in Cornwall. It's a 312 majority for the Conservatives. I really don't see the Lib Dems overturning that with where they are in the polls. Number 5 on the list is Sheffield Hallam, but there's a majority there of 2,125 for Labour to overturn. However, I think they'll take it because of the strong student influence. I don't think that'll necessarily help them. That was Nick Clegg's old constituency. But that seems to the Lib Dems might do it. Cheltenham, it's neck and neck between Tory and Lib Dem. I think the Lib Dems will take Cheltenham. And YouGov are predicting they'll take St Albans, which is actually 11th on their target list. A majority of 6,109 to overturn. But they seem to think they're going to do it. So if they can overturn a majority of over 6,000 in St Albans, then it means it might be likely that they do win seats in Lewis, Cheadle, Devon North, Cheltenham, Sheffield Hallam, and maybe even St Ives. I'm not sure. So once you get to number 16 on their list, which is Winchester, they have to overturn a majority of 10,000, which I think is absolutely impossible given their polling. So I think the maximum number of seats that the Lib Dems can actually win are, if you count Richmond Park, Sheffield Hallam, Cheltenham, and St Albans, is probably 4, possibly 5 if you throw in, Devon North, St Ives. So we'll see what goes on. That's the Lib Dem targets. Okay, just to talk about the things in the news today, and that is whether the returning jihadis, whether they should be allowed to return and be put on trial, because that's, of course, the democratic way to do things. My concern about this is evidence. When we have trials, what are the key planks of evidence you usually have? It's sort of forensic evidence. Obviously, forensic evidence has been destroyed. It was never collected. It would be impossible to send anyone out to examine the areas because it's a part of a war zone, so we can count that out. DNA evidence obviously is a slam dunk in many normal trials. It wouldn't play a role here. Then you have witnesses. You would have to ensure that you talked to different jihadis who were in the same place at the same time, and you would have to rely on them grassing each other. Now, that would be the only way you could really generate evidence. You haven't got CCTV footage. It would be very difficult to work with the Syrian authorities, bearing in mind we have quite an antagonistic relationship with Assad's government. Really, policing in Iraq, in Syria, was either rudimentary or non-existent in these war zones. I'm not quite sure how we would gather evidence. I think it would all boil down to giving different jihadis deals. So they give you information, they get a lighter sentence. That's the only way I can see this working. But bearing in mind the people who are going to be dealing with this in the law, in the courts, in the probation service, throughout the legal system, I think, are ill-equipped to deal with it. They don't know what they're dealing with it, and I don't think they take the ideology and the mentality adequately into account. These people, they don't subscribe to the same values or thought processes that we do, because they are driven by an ideology which is extremely important to them and which shapes their worldview and the way they react, the way they the way they view life, and also the way they stick together. And I think a lot of people in our judicial service may underestimate the bond they feel to each other over and above us, the outsider. The psychology of groups is inherently illiberal, and there's a very strong group dynamic, a very strong us versus them here, which could prevent them from wanting to grass each other, and therefore it would make mounting a feasible case against them absolutely impossible due to lack of evidence and probable cause. I mean, what would you have to mount a case to get a beyond reasonable doubt verdict, or even a on the balance of probability verdict? It would be incredibly hard, extremely costly, totally impracticable. So I think it's best that they are left out there to be dealt with by those authorities, because they know the lay of the land, so to speak, and I think they understand better the mentality than we do. Next is the ongoing story about the NHS, whether the NHS is for sale. Well, it was pointed out by Julia Hartley-Brewer that America and Australia have a free trade deal, but Australia continue to have a free at the point of use health service. No one in Australia is jumping up and down and saying that because they made a deal with Trump, they've sold off their health service. So I don't think it needs to be a certainty. And because of the EU law the way it is, and any tender over a certain amount has to be open to free competition, to put in quotes, from any company that has a subsidiary anywhere in the EU, it means that currently, if they outsource from the NHS, it's up for bidding by any company in the whole of the EU. So why shouldn't it also be up for bidding by America? Surely it would increase competition and drive down prices, and that would be a better thing. So those are just my thoughts on the election today, and I know I kept promising to do the constituency update, but there you have it, guys. Thank you. Have a good day and keep warm. Another freezing night.